Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about what is service registry, what is admin server, what is Jipkin server, what is PN client, and how to develop microservices which are going to register with Eureka, admin server, and Jipkin server. Today, we are going to understand. Today, we are going to understand what is load balancing and how do we implement load balancing in the microservices. Okay, so first of all, what is the meaning of load balancing? Can you tell me any idea what is load balancing? Load balancing is the process of distributing the request to multiple servers. Let's take an example. So here I have deployed my application in one server. Assume that this is one server. Inside this server, our application is deployed. Now, multiple users are going to access our application by sending the request to single server. So one server is available. So all the requests are going to single server. When all the requests are going to single server, then what is the problem, guys? Then what is the problem? I have deployed my application. In one server. All the requests are going to single server. Then the problem is single server is responsible to process all requests. Single server is responsible to handle all requests. If a single server is responsible to handle the requests, then what will happen? Burden will be there on server, because 1,000 people are accessing, 10,000 people are accessing, 1 lakh people are accessing. If all these people are accessing our application, all the requests will go to single server. When all the requests are going to single server, burden will be there on the server. When burden is increased on the server, then what is the problem? What is the problem? Server can crash. The first problem, server can crash. Sometimes responses will be slow. Right? I'm sending a request. There is a load on the server. Then server will respond slowly for our user request. When server is responding slowly, people will not like to use our application. If more load is there, then server will be crashed. In order to handle these problems, in the real time, we are not going to deploy our application in one server. Suppose if you see Facebook application, how many people will be using Facebook at a time? Millions of people, crores of people will be using Facebook. Similarly, YouTube, Gmail, Make My Trip, IRCTC, LinkedIn, Naukri. So these all are world famous applications, right? So from different countries, people are accessing same application. Now, if you take Amazon, how many people will be using Amazon at a time? Online shopping. Many people, many users, crores of people using Amazon application at a time. So if we deploy that Amazon application in one server, it cannot handle all the requests. Then burden will be increased on the server, responses will become slow, and sometimes server also can crash. So to avoid this problem, in the real time, our application will be deployed in multiple servers. Instead of running our application in one server, we are going to deploy our application in multiple servers. So this is one server. Inside this server, my application is available. Assume that server 1 is available and server 2, server 3. Like this, we can take multiple servers. Now, in all these servers, our same application will be running in all these servers, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, 3 servers are available. Using these 3 servers, we are running our application. When 3 servers are available to run our application, these are called as instances of our application. One application can run in more than one server. Those are called instances of the application. In the real time, one application can have 5 instances. Sometimes it can have 10 instances. Sometimes it can have 50, 100 also. It depends on the number of requests coming to our application. So generally people will go with 5 to 10 instances for one application in the real time. Okay, now assume that I am taking 3 instances for my application. When 3 instances available for our application, incoming requests should be distributed to all these 3 servers. 3 servers, nothing but 3 URLs will be available. Every server will have its own URL. In the 3 servers, same application is running. Then we need one manager who is going to distribute the request to all these servers in the round robin fashion. That's where we are going to create one more server. That server will act as a load balancer. One more server will be available. That server will act as a load balancer. Now, all these 3 servers are connected to this load balancer. So load balancer is main server when we are going for load balancing of our application. Now, for end users, we are not going to give these server URLs because there are multiple servers available. Today 3 servers available. Tomorrow it can be 5, it can be 10, it can be 50 also. Now, end user request will go to this load balancer server. End user request will go to load balancer server. This load balancer will understand how many instances available for the application, how many servers available, how many servers are up and running. How many servers are up and running? Load balancer will check that. That load balancer will distribute the request to all the servers in the round robin fashion. Load balancer will distribute the request to all these servers in the round robin fashion. Now, end user request will come to load balancer. Load balancer will give first request to first server, second request to second server, third request to third server. When fourth request comes, it will go to first server. Fifth request will go to second server. Sixth request will go to third server. Like this, in the round robin fashion, all the requests will be distributed to all the servers. This is called server side load balancing. What is the meaning of server side load balancing? Multiple instances available. The distribution, the request distribution will be taken care by another server here. This is called load balancer. Load balancer is responsible to distribute the request to multiple servers. If you set up this kind of load balancing, then it is called as server side load balancing. This is called server side load balancing. In order to set up this server side load balancing, we are going to use AWS cloud, Azure cloud, GCP cloud will be available. In the AWS, there is a service called load balancer service is available. That load balancer is costly. It is a commercial. If you set up load balancer for your application, then the load balancer will take the request. Load balancer will distribute your request to all the servers which are available. Okay, this load balancer we are going to set up in the AWS cloud. In the real time, who is responsible for this load balancing? Application deployment will be taken care by DevOps team. That the DevOps team will set up cloud infrastructure for our application. In the AWS cloud, there is a service called load balancer service is available. By using that load balancer service, they will set up that load balancer, and for using the load balancer, monthly rent we need to pay for the AWS. AWS will give you load balancer as a paid service. So you set up load balancer. For that load balancer, you assign all your incoming requests, all your servers you attach to that. When request comes to load balancer, will give to first server, give to second server, give to third server in the round robin fashion. That means our application is running in 3 servers. to distribute the request to our servers, we are taking one more server that is called load balancer. If you set up a load balancer like this, then it is called server side load balancing. Are you guys clear with this one? Now, for example, if you go for this server side load balancer, we need to pay the money for that. We need to pay the money for that, charges applicable. But here, I don't want to go for server side load balancing. I want to go for client side load balancing. What is the meaning of client side load balancing? This is my application. This is my application. My application will decide which server we need to access. So here, my application is available. My application knows that there are 3 instances available for the microservice. My application knows that there are 3 instances available for the microservice. Then my application will decide which server it should access. Here, who is deciding which server we should access? So here, load balancer is deciding which server we need to access. If load balancer decide which server we need to access, this is server side load balancing. This is called server side load balancing. Here, who is deciding which server we need to access? Our client. Our client application is deciding which server we need to access. So this is called as client side load balancer. So this is called server side load balancer and this is called client side load balancer. What is the difference between server side load balancer and client side load balancer? What is the difference between server side load balancer and client side load balancer? Server side load balancer means one extra server will be available which will decide which request should be processed by which server. So that is server side load balancing. What is client side load balancing? Client application only will decide which server it should access. Now here, when you go for PN client will act as a client side load balancer. So we are using PN client for inter-service communication. So PN client is communicating with the welcome API. In the greet API, we have implemented PN client. PN client is communicating with the welcome API. Welcome API is running in one server or multiple servers. Today I am going to run that in the multiple servers. When the welcome API is running in the multiple servers, then PN client will communicate with the welcome API. If you see here in the PN client, am I giving URL of the service to access? Am I giving name of the service to access? I'm giving the name of the service to access. With that service name, it will go to service registry to identify how many URLs available for the welcome API. There are 3 URLs available for the welcome API. Nothing but there are 3 instances available for the welcome API. If 3 instances available for the welcome API, then PN client will take the help of the ribbon to understand which server it should use to send a request. So server is deciding which request should processed by which server. Client is deciding which request should processed by which server. Here, client is deciding. When a client is deciding which request should processed by which server, then we are going to call it as a client side load balancing. If you set up a separate load balancer to process the request, then it is called server side load balancing. So can you tell me, if you run your application in one server, then what is the problem, guys? If you run your application in one server, then what is the problem? Burden will be increased on the server, responses will become slow, server can crash. If response is slow, customers will not use your application, your business will be affected. So to avoid this problem, in the real time, people are going to deploy one application in multiple servers so that requests can be distributed to multiple servers. The process of distributing the request to multiple servers is called as load balancing. In how many ways we can implement that load balancing? In how many ways we can implement that load balancing? Load balancing we can implement in two ways. One is called client side load balancing. Another one is called server side load balancing. What is the difference between server side load balancing and client side load balancing? What is the difference between client side load balancing and server side load balancing? Server side load balancing means a separate load balancer service will be available which will decide which request should go to which server. What is the meaning of client side load balancing? Client will decide which request should go to which server. Now we are using PN client for inter-service communication. PN client will perform server-side load balancing. PN client will perform client-side load balancing. Client-side load balancing. That means PN client only will decide out of 3 services, out of 3 instances, out of 3 URLs, which URL it has to access. That's why PN client is called as a client-side load balancer. Are you guys clear? Now, can we set up this load balancer? Yes. Before going to set up this load balancer, I want to prove that load balancer is really working. I want to prove that load balancer is really working. To prove that load balancer is really working, I'm going to make one change in the welcome REST controller. Currently, in the welcome REST controller, we are returning direct message. Okay. Now, let me write some code here. Private. I'm injecting one object called environment object, which is from Spring Core package. I'm injecting one object called environment object. Let me perform auto wiring, auto wide. Why we are injecting this one is env dot get property of server dot port. env.get property of server.port. That means which server processed our request. By using port number, I will understand. So earlier, our server is running on which port number? Our server is running on the port number 1111. Now, can I run 2 servers with the same port number? Can I run 2 servers with the same port number? I cannot run 2 servers with the same port number. So I want to run welcome API in 3 servers. Every server should have a different port number. When PN client is sending a request to 3 servers, which server processed our request? How do you understand? Based on the port number, we can understand. 1111, okay, and 1112, 1113, like that. I will follow some different pattern for that. Based on that port number, I will understand this request processed by which server out of 3. Which server processed our request out of 3. So that's why I'm removing this port number from the YML. I can't hard code the port number. If I keep server.port 1111, when I run this application, always it will try to start with 1111. But I don't want that. I want to give different port numbers for 3 servers. Okay. Remove hard-coded port number. The first thing, I removed a hard-coded port number. And in the REST controller, I'm going to send welcome to Ashok IT. So here, along with this response, I want to print the port number also. On which port number this request is processed. Okay. So now, what is the response we are going to get? Welcome to Ashok IT. This response is coming from which server? Based on the port number, we will understand. How to get the server port number in our application? By injecting environment object. I have injected environment object. It is from which package? Beans factory, core package onwards, we are going to get this environment object. Core package is available. By using this environment object, what is the property? What is the method we are calling? Environment data get property method we are calling. It is giving the port. That means this request will be processed in which server. That server port number I am getting. That port number I am sending in the response. Why we are sending this port number in the response? Just for confirmation, load balancing is happening. Okay, good. That's it, guys. Let's go here and run our applications. Let's go here and run our applications. Okay. You see, I have made two changes in the welcome service today. One change is I removed hard-coded port number from the YML and I have injected environment object. Why we injected environment object? By using this environment object, I am getting the server port number and I am sending that port number along with the response. With that port number, you can understand which request processed by which is server. That's it. Now, let me start my service registry first. Refresh, right click, run as boot app. We are running Eureka service registry on the port number 8761, localhost colon 8761. Eureka is started. Currently, no instances registered with the Eureka. Similarly, run as admin server. Run the admin server, which is using port number 9090, localhost colon 9090. Currently, no application registered with the admin server. Now I need to go for Zipkin server. Zipkin server is available as a jar file. Okay. Open the command prompt, run this also. Java space hyphen jar space Zipkin jar. Zipkin server will run by default on the port number 9411. Let us access this. Localhost colon 9411. Localhost colon 9411. Zipkin dashboard is also running. Run the query. Currently, we are not getting any output. Okay. Eureka is started. Admin server started. Zipkin server also started. Now, I need to start my welcome API. Welcome API, we are going to run in one server or we are going to run in multiple servers? We are going to run in multiple servers. Every server should have a different port number. One single REST API, we are running in 3 different servers with 3 different port numbers. Those are called as instances of the REST API. Now, in this REST API, in this welcome REST API, guys, currently, did we configure any port number or we did not configure any port number? In the welcome API, port number is configured or port number is not configured? Port number is not configured. Why we have not configured? Why we have not configured port number? If I configure port number, always it will take the same port number. With one port number, how many instances we can run? Only one instance. If I want to run 3 instances, 3 different port numbers should be available. Okay. Now, if I want to run with different port numbers, what I am going to do is right click, run as run configuration. If you observe carefully, this is important point. Welcome API I want to run. If I directly run this as a boot application, it will take 8080 as a default port number. In my system, already Oracle is running with 8080. I cannot go with that. Now, I did not configure port number in the YML also because 3 times I want to start the same application with 3 different port numbers. In the runtime, I will pass port number for my application. So observe, how do we do that? Right click, run as run configuration. Go to the run configuration, select the API. Which API? Welcome API. Select this 1 minute. Sorry, it started. Wait. Right click, go to the Eureka. Anything is registered with the Eureka? Currently nothing is registered with the Eureka. Right click, run as run configuration. Welcome API is available. Go to arguments, VM arguments, -d server.port is equal to 8081. What is the port number I am giving now? 8081. So with this, welcome API will run in one server with the port number 8081. I have not hard coded the port number in the YML. I am giving the port number as a VM argument. That means when the server is starting, it will take this port number. Click on run. So with this, welcome API is starting with the port number 8081. Now go to Eureka and refresh this. Can you see? Welcome API is started. How many instances available? One instance is available. What is the port number? 8081. Can I run same API in the another server with a different port number? Yes. Let's go here. Observe. Welcome API run as run configuration. This time I will give port number as 8082. Apply and run that. So now for the welcome API, we have started second instance. How many instances available now? 2 instances available. One instance is running on the port number 8081. Another instance is running on the port number 8082. Can we run one more instance also? Right click, run as, run configuration, arguments 8083, apply and run. So with this, 3 instances available for the welcome API. Same API, I'm running 3 times. That means 3 servers available with 3 different port numbers. 8081, 8082, 8083. Now go to Eureka and see this Eureka. See here, for the welcome API, what Eureka is telling? Boss, your welcome API is up with 3 instances. These are the URLs of your 3 instances. One is 8081, second one is 8082, third one is 8083. So with this, can I run 5 instances also? Can we run 10 instances also? Then what is the benefit with 3 instances now? All the requests will go to single instance. The requests will go to multiple instances. Requests will go to multiple instances. Practically, we can see that. Now, I have started welcome API in 3 instances. Okay. How I have given dynamic port number as a VM argument. How to give that VM argument? Right click, run as, run configuration, select the API, go to arguments and give this property -d server.port. With which port number you want to run your server, give that port number. Now if I give 8084, apply and run, what happened now? What is happening now? 4th server also started for the same application. Go to Eureka and refresh. How many instances available? How many instances available? 4 instances available for our welcome API. Very good. Now let's go and start our greet API. Refresh. Let's run as boot application. Boot application greet API. Greet API will run on which port number? Greet API will run on which port number? 2222. One instance I am running for the greet API. So go to Eureka, refresh, greet API, up, number is 1, welcome API, up, number is 4. That means greet API is running in 1 server, welcome API is running in 4 servers. Are you guys clear? Now, I want to send request to my greet API. I want to send the request to my greet API. What is the URL pattern? /greet is available. I will send the request to /greet. What is the logic available in the greet API? Invoke welcome API by using FN client. What is there in the FN client? In the FN client, we are telling that, hey FN client, you need to send get request with the /welcome URL pattern to welcome API. For the welcome API, how many URLs available here? Earlier, yesterday we had only 1 URL, but today for the welcome API there are 4 URLs available. Out of these 4 URLs, PN client will use which URL? Depends on the ribbon. Inside the PN client, ribbon component will be available, which is used to perform client-side load balancing. Now, when I send a request to the Greet API, Greet API will talk to PN client. Here, PN client wants to communicate with the welcome API, but PN client don't know what is the URL of the welcome API. Who will maintain the URLs of our APIs? Service registry, which is called discovery server. Now, when we send a request to the Greet API will call the PN client method. PN client will communicate with the service registry, will identify URL of the welcome API. But here, it is a surprise for the PN client. Yesterday, only one URL available, directly it accessed that URL. But today, it is a surprise for the PN client. What is that surprise for the PN client? It's not one URL. There are 4 URLs available for the welcome API. Out of these 4 URLs, which one we should use to communicate with the welcome API? PN client will get confusion there. PN client will get confusion there. To avoid that confusion, PN client will use one concept called ribbon concept. What that ribbon concept will do? Ribbon concept will decide first request should go to first server, second request should go to second server. So here, server is deciding which request should go to which server. Client is deciding which request should go to which server. Client only deciding, PN client only deciding which request should go to which server. So can we call it as a client-side load balancing? Yes, it is called as a client-side load balancing. Sir, how can we understand really requests are distributed to multiple servers? What is the proof? Port number. Which request is processed in which server, that server port number will come in the response. That is the change we made in the welcome REST controller. That is the change I made in the welcome REST controller. So what I am doing in the response, I'm sending port number. Which port number? In which server this request is executed, that server port number I am sending in the response. So practically we can see load balancing is happening or not. Okay, so we are going to send the request to Greet REST controller. Greet REST controller is calling PN client method. PN client will communicate with the welcome API, but for the welcome API, it is not one URL. For the welcome API, we are having 4 URLs. Out of these 4 URLs, which URL PN client will use? PN client will take the help of the ribbon here. Ribbon is a internal component of the PN client. You no need to do any configuration for the ribbon. You no need to do any configuration for the load balancing. PN client is already knows how to perform the load balancing with the help of the ribbon. This load balancing is performed by PN client is called server-side load balancing, or it is called client-side load balancing. Client-side load balancing. Okay, good. Let's go to browser. Let us access Greet API. When we access Greet API, it will access PN client. PN client will access welcome API. We will get welcome API response plus PN client response. Now send the request. Localhost colon 2222/greet. Now what is the response we got now? Can you see? Good morning. Welcome to Ashok IT 8081. What is 8081? First server. 8081 is a first server. Now refresh. What happened now? The response is coming from which server? Fourth server. Send the request again. Third server. Send the request again. Second server. Send the request again. First server. 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So every request is going to same server. Every request is going to different server. Every request is going to same server. Every request is going to different server. Every request is going to different server. Can we say it is a load balancing? Now burden will be increased on the server, burden will not be increased on the server, burden will not be increased on the server, load will be distributed. If I don't print this port number, you will not understand request is going to which server. With that port number, we are able to understand which request is processed by which server. Now there are 4 servers available for the welcome API. If any one server is deleted, if any one server is crashed, any problem? No. The remaining 3 servers will process our requests in the round robin fashion. Who is doing that load balancing? Who is doing that load balancing? PN client. PN client is communicating with the welcome API with the API name. For that API name, there are 4 URLs available. It is using round robin technique to send first request to first server, second request to second server and all. You see, every request is processing by different server in the welcome API. Welcome API is having 4 instances. Welcome API having 4 instances. Every request is going to different server in the round robin technique. This is called client side load balancing. Now tell me, if I implement this communication by using REST template, can we achieve this functionality? If I use REST template, can we achieve this functionality? What we need to do for the REST template? Give the URL. Always we need to give the fixed URL for the REST template. If I go for web client also, what will happen? If I go for web client also, we need to give the fixed URL. We have fixed URL, we have dynamic URLs. Dynamic. Today 4 available. Tomorrow it can become 10 also. Or else from 4 it can become 2 also. You can't give the URL fix here. You can't fix the URL here. URLs should be identified dynamically in the inter-service communication. That's why we will use a PN client for the inter-service communication. PN client is communicating with the welcome API by using service name. For that service name, there are 4 URLs available. PN client is using 1 URL for 1 request. Out of 4, it is using round robin technique. Every request will go to different server to implement load balancing concept. What is load balancing? What is the advantage with the load balancing? Load balancing is a technique. Load balancing is a technique which is used to distribute all the incoming requests to multiple servers to reduce burden on the server. So now here, how many ways are there to implement load balancing for our application? There are 2 ways available to implement load balancing for the application. What are those 2 ways to implement load balancing? One is called server side load balancing. Second one is called client side load balancing. What is the difference between server side load balancing and client side load balancing, guys? Server side load balancing means a separate load balancer service will be available to distribute the request. When it comes to client side load balancing, client only deciding which request should go to which server. Client is communicating with the service registry, welcome API. There are 4 URLs available. Take the 4 URLs. Repeatedly, you send the request one after other, one after other. Load balancing is decided at the client side. That's why it is called client side load balancing. So now, yesterday someone asked, why you have taken 2 boxes for the welcome API? Now you understand why there are 2 boxes available for the welcome API. 2 boxes, nothing but 2 instances. I am running same API 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, nothing but 4 instances available. What is the benefit we are getting with the 4 instances? Requests are distributed to 4 servers. Instead of sending all the requests to single server, all the requests will be distributed to 4 servers. That means load balancing will happen. Are you guys clear with this point? Yes. Online students, are you able to understand? Online students, Are you able to understand what is load balancing now? You understand how to implement load balancing also? How do we implemented this load balancing? Two changes I have done. Today I made two changes. Total three things I have done. One is, what is the first change I have done here? From the welcome API YML, I removed port number. Why we removed port number from there? What is the reason for removing the port number? I don't want to fix the port number. Every time I want to use new port number. How we are passing the port number? As a runtime configuration argument. -d server port we are giving. The next one, why we are getting the port number? Why we are sending port number also in the response? Why we are getting the port number? Why we are sending that port number in the response? That is for our confirmation. That is for our confirmation which request is processed by which server. Suppose if I don't print that port number, you don't know which request is processed by which server. How we are getting the port number of the server? We are injecting one environment object. Okay, environment.get property of server.port. We got the port number. In the welcome API response, I am giving the port number so that clearly we can understand which request is processed by which server. Are you guys clear with this one? Yeah, good. So with this, we are clear with what is service registry. Can you tell me, guys, what is the service registry? Service registry is a server which will maintain all the services available in our application. All the microservices information will be maintained by our service registry. Can we call service registry as a discovery server? Why they are calling it as a discovery server? To identify URLs of the services, we are going to use this discovery server. Which one we are using as a service registry? Eureka server. Eureka server is acting as a service registry. Then we discussed about admin server. What is the purpose of admin server? We are having multiple APIs. For every API, we are having actuators to monitor and manage our application. Accessing all the API actuators is difficult because every API will have its own URL. I want to access all the actuators at one place. That's where we are going for admin server. Who provided this admin server? Code-centric company provided this. This is this Eureka. Eureka we are getting from Spring Cloud. Eureka is provided by Spring Cloud. This admin server provided by Code-centric company. This is providing one user interface where we can monitor and manage all our APIs actuators at one place. Then third one, we have seen Jipkin server. Third one we have seen Jipkin server. What is the meaning of that Jipkin server? It is used for distributed tracing. What request came to server? How many servers involved in that? What is the time taken by that? Which is slow? Which is fast? The time metrics we can get by using Jipkin server. And we developed backend APIs, which are also called as our microservices. I have taken welcome API and I have taken greet API. That welcome API and greet API are our microservices. These microservices acting as a client for Eureka, acting as a client for admin server, acting as a client for Jipkin server also. In these microservices, I have implemented PN client. In these microservices, I have implemented fee and client. Why we implemented fee and client for here? What is the purpose of this one? It is used for inter-service communication. One microservice want to communicate with the another microservice. That's why we used this fee and client. What is the benefit we are getting with the fee and client? You can go for REST template. You can go for web client also. But especially why we have implemented only fee and client here? With this fee and client, we are getting load balancing. What is that load balancing? Distributing the request to multiple servers is called as a load balancing. What type of load balancing it is providing? Is it providing server side load balancing or it is providing client side load balancing? It is providing client side load balancing. How it is providing client side load balancing? With the ribbon. Okay. PN client will communicate with the service using service name, not with the service URL. What is the problem if I give service URL? Hard-coded URL. Tomorrow URLs can be increased, URLs can be decreased. So that is the reason we should not hard code the URL to access another service. I'm giving welcome API service name. How PN client will know what is the URLs of the welcome API? It will get it from the service registry. PN client will communicate with the service registry and it will ask, hey service registry, I want to access welcome API. Then service registry will tell these are the 4 URLs available for the welcome API. Then PN client will talk to ribbon. Ribbon will tell there are 4 URLs available. Let us follow round robin technique. What is the meaning of round robin technique? Every request will go to new server. Every request will go to different server. First request go to first server. Second request will go to second server, like that. In the round robin technique, it is going to process our incoming request. So load will be distributed. Now, out of these 4 instances, if one instance is deleted, if one server is deleted, but if one server is stopped, any problem? No. The remaining 3 servers will be up and running. The incoming request will be distributed to the available 3 servers. That means here for our application, single point of failure is available, high availability is available, high availability is available. So what is the meaning of single point of failure? If server is crashed, application will be down. So here, if you run your application in single server, if this server is crashed, then what will happen? Single point of failure. Whole application is gone. But here, my application is running in multiple servers. For example, this server is crashed. Any problem? No. The remaining 2 servers are going to handle our request. So this is called high availability. Always our application will be available for the customers. Always our application should be available for the customers. Then only our business will run smoothly. Got my point? That's why in the real time, people will use load balancing for the application. In the real time, people will use load balancing for the applications in the real time. Clear? Along with this load balancing, here also there is a problem. The problem is my application, guys, this is out of scope. Listen carefully. My application is running in how many servers? My application is running in 3 servers. We thought that RPM, request per minute for our application is 10,000. That means per minute 10,000 people will access our application. To process 10,000 requests per minute, 3 servers are sufficient. That is our calculation. Observe. Our application is running in 3 servers. RPM nothing but requests per minute. The request per minute, 10,000 requests we are getting per minute for our application. To process 10,000 requests per minute, 3 servers are sufficient. That is our calculation. From 1 month onwards, our application is working with 3 servers. There is no problem. Per minute, 10,000 requests are coming. From tomorrow, we are going to announce big billion sale in our application. Okay, Amazon is available. Normal day customers access, big billion day customers access will be more. Now, tomorrow we thought that we are going to get 20,000 requests per minute. Okay, I have taken 6. Already we are having 3 servers. What is the RPM we are expecting now? The RPM we are already getting 10,000. To process 10,000 requests, how many servers we have taken? 3 servers we have taken. Tomorrow we have a offer in our application. As a business owner, I am expecting that RPM will be 20,000 for our application. To process 20,000 requests per minute, I am going to set up 6 servers. Are you guys getting my point? Okay, so that is the estimation. Currently 3 servers, 10,000 requests per minute. Tomorrow, big billion day, 20,000 requests may come. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm expecting that 20,000 requests will come per minute. That is the reason I have configured 6 servers for my application. Okay, big billion day started. Morning at 9 a.m. I am having 10,000 requests per minute. Morning at 10 a.m. I am getting 12,000 requests per minute. At 10:15 a.m. I reach to 20,000 requests per minute. Any problem as of now? My servers are capable to handle 20,000 requests. All of sudden at 10:30 a.m. I'm getting 50,000 requests. I did not expect this. My expectation 20,000 per minute. That's why I have taken 6 servers. 9 o'clock billion day started. 9, 10, 10, 15, 10:30. By 10:30 peak load is coming. 50,000 requests came to my servers at a time. My infrastructure is capable, or my infrastructure is not capable? Not capable. Then what will happen? Burden will increase on the 6 servers. All of sudden, 6 servers crashed. Then what will happen? Business loss. It's a business loss. We thought that 20,000 requests will come per minute. That's why we are running our application in the 6 server. But unexpected, we are getting 50, almost double, more than double. We are expecting 20,000, but we are getting 50,000 requests. So load is increased on the servers. All the servers are collapsed. All the servers are crashed. If all the servers are crashed, what will happen? Application will be down. If application is down, people will wait for the application, or people will go to other applications, competitors. If Amazon is giving big billion day, Flipkart also will give the billion day on the same day. If Amazon is not responding, people will go to Flipkart. If a Flipkart is not responding, people will come to Amazon. If our application is down, competitor business will increase. Our business will be down, our competitor business will be increased. Are you able to understand? So this is valid scenario or invalid scenario? It's valid. It can happen in the real time. So we expected some requests per minute, but more than that, we are getting the request. Okay, this time, big billion day is utter flop in our company. By 10:30, the servers are crashed because of heavy load. So big billion day wasted for us. We did not get any revenue from the big billion day. Because of our announcement, competitor got more benefit. Because of our announcement, our competitor got more benefit. We are in the loss now. Okay, this is a good lesson for me. I lost my business. Again, after 1 month, I have announced Big Billion Day. After 1 month, I announced Big Billion Day. This time, I'm expecting RPM. This time, I'm expecting RPM 50K. RPM means, what is the meaning of RPM? Request per minute. So last time, what is the top number we got? 50,000 per minute. So I expected that 50,000 requests will come per minute. This time I have taken 15 servers. This time I have taken 15 servers. So 3 servers for 10, 20 servers for 6, 12 servers for 40. Okay. Then I have taken 3 servers extra. So total, I am running my application with 15 servers. What is the capacity of the 15 servers? 50,000 requests per minute. If 50,000 people access in a minute, my servers are capable to handle that. Okay. This time, morning 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. as usual, 10,000 requests we got. As usual, 10,000 requests we got. 10:30, 50,000 requests available, or else let's say that 10 a.m. only we got 20,000 requests. 10:15 we got the 50,000 requests. Up to 10:15 we are okay. But at 10:30 we got 1 lakh requests. We got 1 lakh requests. Then what happens? Again, load is increased. Our expectation 50,000 per minute. To handle 50,000 requests, what we thought 15 servers are sufficient. But actually we got 1 lakh requests. So servers are capable, servers are not capable to handle the load. Servers are not capable to handle the load. Next time, I have purchased 100 computers. Next time, Big Billion Day, I have started my application with 100 servers. I purchased 100 computers. I started my application with 100 servers. Then what happened here? Morning at 10 a.m., I'm getting 2 lakh requests per minute. My servers are capable to handle 2 lakh requests now because I am running in 100 server, 100 instances available for my application. I'm running my application in the 100 servers. 10 a.m. I got 2 lakh requests. Okay. At 10:30, the requests are reduced to 10,000. The requests are reduced to 10,000 because at 10:15, one politician met with one accident, a big news in the media channel, a big announcement in the media, a big politician met with one accident. Then what will happen? People will be diverted to news channels. But what I thought, last time I got 1 lakh requests, this time I may get 4-5 lakh requests per minute. I started my application with 100 servers. 10 a.m. a good start. 2 lakh requests are there. At 10:15, a big news announcement from our Prime Minister or someone. Okay, then people will be diverted to news channel. Then what happened? My requests are reduced to 10,000. What is the problem here? Unnecessarily, I have purchased 100 servers. I am not getting any business from that. It's my money waste. Last time, I expected less. We got more. This time, I expected more, but getting less. So can we predict the market? Can we predict the market now? So can you decide how many instances we need to use to run our application? Can we decide 5 servers are sufficient? 100 servers are sufficient? You cannot decide. So last 2 times, 3 times, whatever I expected, I got more than that. This time I started with 100 servers, but I am getting 10,000 requests only. All my money is wasted by purchasing these machines. 100 machines I have purchased to run my application. I invested 1 crore money, but there is no business today because something happened in the media. Are you guys clear? So now tell me, how can we decide how many number of servers required to run our application? Can anyone decide that? Can we predict that? You cannot predict that. That's why in the real time, people will go for load balancing with a concept called auto scaling. In the real time, load balancing will be available. Along with the load balancing, there will be a concept called auto scaling. When you go for auto scaling, the benefit is you no need to decide how many servers are required. Auto scaling will decide. If you are getting more requests, more servers will be created. If you are getting less requests, less servers will be available to run your application. Auto scaling means it will adjust number of servers based on the incoming traffic. If you are getting more requests, servers will be increased to run your application. If less number of requests are coming, servers will be decreased. Automatically, it can increase the instances and it can decrease the instances based on the incoming traffic. That concept is called load balancing with auto scaling. If you don't go for auto scaling, then what is the problem? If you don't go for auto scaling, what is the problem? You cannot decide how many servers are required to process your, to run your application. That's why in the real time, for every application, load balancing will be available, plus auto scaling also will be available. Both are two different concepts. What is the load balancing? Which is used to distribute the request to multiple servers. How many servers are required to run our application? That will be decided by auto scaling. Auto scaling. Scaling means adjust as per the requirement. Scaling means adjust as per the requirement. Scale up, scale down. Scale up means increase the count. Scale down means decrease the count. Based on what parameter it will increase or it will decrease the servers? Based on the traffic we are getting, it can increase the servers or it can decrease the server. Now do you know how this Amazon, YouTube, Google are running? With load balancing plus auto scaling. On the big billion day, Amazon is crashing. Amazon is not crashing. Not crashing. Why? Any number of requests can come. Amazon can process. Flipkart can process because they have implemented load balancing with auto scaling. If more requests come, more servers will be available. If less requests come, less servers will be available. Business will not be down when you go for this auto scaling concept. Are you guys clear? Now let us see. Now, what is this, guys? AWS Cloud. I'm going to AWS now. Scroll. I want to show you just. Can you see what is this one? What is this one? Load balancer. Bottom, auto scaling. So where we are going to set up this load balancing and auto scaling? In the AWS Cloud. Who will do that setup in the real time? DevOps team. So we are going to write the code. We will give our code in the Git repository. DevOps people will take care of the project deployment with the load balancing plus auto scaling. Load balancing plus auto scaling paid services in the AWS Cloud. So that is the reason nowadays cloud is mandatory for everyone. Cloud knowledge is mandatory for everyone. So if you are a developer also, you should have the basic idea. What is cloud computing? What services we are using in our application? What is the purpose of those services? So in the AWS cloud, there is a topic called load balancer is available. Auto scaling is available. So if you go to load balancers in the AWS, there is an option called create load balancer. There are multiple types of load balancers available. Application load balancer, network load balancer, gateway load balancer. You can see here, can you read this one? Read that theory. What you understood? What you understood from that? That is used to distribute the request to multiple servers, especially when we are going for the microservices with HTTP and HTTPS requests. We are going to set up application load balancer, which is available in the AWS cloud. Okay, go to auto scaling. Yeah, can you read this? Amazon EC2 auto scaling. It will help to maintain the availability of your application. So servers count can be increased, servers count can be decreased based on the demand. Okay. So like this, the auto scaling is going to work. Can you read this one? Benefits of auto scaling. Fault tolerance. What is the meaning of a fault tolerance? What is the meaning of a fault tolerance? Come on, read it. Auto scaling means fault tolerance will be there. If any server is down, if it is not healthy, it will remove that and it will add a new server in place of that. Availability. Ensure that your application always has the right amount of capacity to handle current traffic demand. That means how many number of requests are coming, based on that right amount of capacity, nothing but correct number of servers will be available. So it can increase the servers count, it can decrease the server count also. What is the another benefit? How we will get the cost management benefit? Save the money by dynamically launching the instances when they are needed and terminating them when they are not needed. So you no need to decide how many servers are required. Auto scaling is going to decide how many servers are required for our application. So in order to work with this server side load balancing and auto scaling, we should have knowledge on the cloud platform, AWS cloud. Actually, that is DevOps engineers' duty in the real time to set up this application with load balancing and auto scaling. But in the interview, they will ask this question: how do you handle when the load is increasing on the server? Load balancing will be available. How many number of servers you will set up in the load balancing? You need to tell we are using auto scaling group in our project. Why we are using auto scaling group in our project? It will decide how many number of servers are required to handle the current traffic. Okay, you should have this idea how servers are running in the real time, how load is distributed to multiple servers, how many servers will be available for our application. Good. Perfect. So with this, we have seen what is load balancing. That is, we have seen client side. Server side, we have not seen. That is part of AWS, which is not covered in our Spring Boot. Load balancing, we are able to do by using FIAN client with a client side load balancing. And we have seen FIAN client, which is used for inter-service communication. And fourth one, backend APIs, we are able to cover microservices. Then we have seen Jipkin server for distributed tracing. And we are able to see admin server to monitor and manage all the APIs at one place. Then next one, service registry, which is used to list down all the services that are available in our application. What is the service name? What is the service status? How many instances available for the service? And what are the URLs available for the service? What is the meaning of instances available for the service? What is the meaning of instances available for the service? In how many servers our application is running? In how many servers our application is running? Those are called instances. Why do we run our application in the multiple instances? How do we run our application in multiple instances? For the load balancing purpose. Good. Next one. Cloud, yes. Okay. Now guys, so see here, next one is API gateway. Next one is API gateway. What is the role of API gateway in our project? What is the role of API gateway in our project? API gateway will act as a entry point for all the microservices we have. So there are two microservices available. One is Greet API, second one is Welcome API. Instead of giving all the microservices URLs to other company or other application, we are going to provide API gateway. API gateway is responsible to manage incoming requests. API gateway is responsible to manage incoming requests. Whenever the request comes to the API gateway, inside the API gateway, filter can be executed and routing will be executed. What is the meaning of the filter? You can decide whether it is a valid request or not, whether we need to process this request or not. What is the meaning of routing? What is the meaning of routing? Routing is used to decide which request should go to which service in the backend. Okay, that logic will be available in the API gateway. There are open source API gateways available and paid API gateways also available. One of the open source API gateway is a cloud API gateway from the Spring. Spring Cloud provided one API gateway. If you want to use paid API gateways, APG available from the Google, and in the AWS also paid API gateway is available. We are going to see Cloud API gateway, Spring Cloud API gateway, which is open source. In that API gateway, routing will be available. What is the meaning of routing? What is the meaning of routing? Which request should go to which API? Now, see here, how do we do that routing? I am having two APIs here, guys. One is Welcome API, another one is Greet API. I'm having Welcome API and Greet API. So in this Welcome API, what is the method is available? /welcome method is available. /welcome method is available. In the Greet API, what is the method is available? /greet is available. So the meaning is, whenever request comes with the /welcome, I want to route the request to Welcome API. Whenever the request comes with the /greet, that request should be routed to Greet API. Here, if you see API gateway is also acting as a client for the Eureka. API gateway also will act as a client for the Eureka. Why API gateway will act as a client for Eureka? API gateway should know which services are available, which request should go to which service. So API gateway also will act as a client for the Eureka. In the API gateway, we are going to write a routing configuration. What is that routing configuration? What we do is, if any request comes with the /welcome URL pattern, route it to Welcome API. If any request comes with the /greet, route it to Greet API. This configuration we are going to do in the API gateway. Are you guys able to follow this? Now, tell me, what is API gateway in the microservices? What is the role of API gateway in the microservices? API gateway is a entry point for all the backend APIs in our application. API gateway will act as a mediator between incoming requests and backend APIs. What logic will be available in the API gateway? filter logic will be available, routing logic will be available. What is the purpose of a filter in the API gateway? Filter is used to decide whether it is a valid request or not. Whether we need to process this request or not, we can validate that by using filter. What is the routing logic? Which request should go to which backend API? That configuration will be available. Filter is a Java class. Routing is a YML configuration. Filter is a Java class. In that Java class, we can verify whether this request is a valid request or not. If it is a valid request, then only process that. If it is not valid, don't process that. That logic we will write inside the filter class. Then what about routing? What about routing? Routing is a YML configuration. Which URL pattern should be processed by which backend API? We will do that. Let us see the routing configuration. This is the routing configuration we are going to do, guys. This is the routing configuration we are going to do in the API gateway. What we are telling, if URL pattern path is /welcome, if URL pattern path is /welcome, then it should go to welcome API. LB:welcome API. What is the meaning of LB:welcome API? Load balancing of the welcome API. Welcome API can have more than one URL. How the API gateway should route the request? If there is only one URL for the welcome API, directly it can route to particular URL. But welcome API can have multiple URLs. Then API gateway also will follow load balancing technique. How the PN client is following the load balancing technique, our API gateway also will follow the load balancing technique. You see the configuration. If path equal to /welcome, then it should go to load balancer of the welcome API. If a path is /greet, then it should go to greet API. Today for the greet API, one URL is available. Tomorrow for the same greet API, multiple URLs can be available. This is routing configuration in the Spring Cloud API gateway. Okay. Filter is a Java class. Filter is a Java class. Routing is a YML configuration. Are you able to understand? See the steps we need to follow to develop API gateway application. Create one boot application. What are the dependencies? Web starter, Eureka client. Why Eureka client is required? It should act as a client for the Eureka server. Why API gateway should act as a client for Eureka server? Why API gateway should act as a client for Eureka? Because it should discover the services, service name, service URLs. API gateway should know the URLs to route the request. Okay. Then what is this annotation? Enable discovery client annotation at the start class. With that, it will be auto registered with the Eureka server. Configure routings in the YML file. What is the configuration in the routing? If the path is /greet, go to greet API. If a path is /welcome, go to welcome API. That is the configuration. Now, create one project. Stop all these things. Now let me create API gateway. We will just see routing. Filter we will discuss in the tomorrow session. Just I will show you API gateway with the routing. Let me create a new project. File, new, starter project. 46th application, API gateway. Click on next. What is the dependency we need to use, guys? Discovery client. Along with this, Spring Cloud gateway. Can you read this one? What is the description they are giving for API gateway? Read that. It is providing a simple, effective way to route APIs in the servlet-based applications. It provides cross-cutting concepts, security, monitoring, resilience can be implemented in the API gateway. That means any common logics that are required for multiple APIs can be implemented in the API gateway. Now you see what are the dependencies. Web starter, client, gateway, and DevTools dependency we are going to use. Click on next and finish. API gateway project is getting created. Go to its pom.xml and verify this. Java version, cloud version, web starter, gateway, Spring Cloud Starter Gateway MVC dependency is available. Netflix Eureka client dependency is available. I want to make this application as a Eureka client, guys. I want to make this application as Eureka client. How to make that application as Eureka client? How to make this application as Eureka client? @enable discovery client. In the start class, let's write a point @enable discovery client. Now go to YML configuration. Properties file is available. I'm changing the properties file to YML file. Inside this YML file, what we need to do? Port number, set the port number for this application, set the name for this application, configure routings for this application. So let me take this YML. Spring Cloud Gateway, routes, welcome API, load balancer with welcome API, /welcome should go to welcome API, /greet should go to greet API. For this project, I'm giving the name as a Cloud API Gateway. What is the port number we are setting for this? The port number we are setting for this is 3333. Let's try. Refresh. First, let me run service registry, run as boot application. Then admin server, run as boot application. Welcome API, run as run configuration, arguments 8081, apply and run. Same welcome API in another server 8082. I'm running 2 instances for the welcome API. Go to Eureka, refresh. How many URLs available for welcome API now? 2 URLs available, nothing but there are 2 instances available for the welcome API. Now let me run greet API, run as boot application. Go to here, refresh. Now observe what we have done so far. We started all 3 servers, Eureka, admin and Jipkin. Welcome API, I started with 2 instances. Welcome API, I started with 2 instances. Greet API, I started with 1 instance. Then let me run API gateway. Maven, update this project, force update. So what is the port number for API gateway? 3333. Run as boot app. API gateway project is failed. API gateway is not started. 1 minute, sir. Guys, in the latest version, they changed it. Whatever the configuration I have taken, this was the previous version of the Spring Boot, these routes and all. Now, in the latest version, the configuration got changed. I'm checking the documentation. What is the change that they have done in the latest version? So they are giving cloud gateway routes, but actually it is asking MVC routes. This is previous version of the Spring Cloud. Spring Cloud Starter Gateway. Okay, let me change my YML. Spring Cloud Starter Gateway. Let me remove this MVC here. Then let's see the previous configuration will work. Cloud Gateway routes. Spring dot cloud dot gateway dot direct routes are not there. MVC routes are there. We should get direct route. Refresh, update this project. What is the dependency? Spring Cloud Starter Gateway. See the documentation. Spring Cloud Starter Gateway. Predicate. Spring dot cloud dot gateway dot routes. Okay. Yeah, fine guys. I think this time it should work. Let me set the port number. Spring dot port. Server dot port. Server dot port. I'm giving the port number as 3333. Let me set name for the application. Spring dot application dot name. Spring dot application dot name. Application name I am giving as Cloud API Gateway. I'm giving the name as Cloud API Gateway. Now, you see the configuration that we have given in this application. I'm giving server port number as 3333 and application name I am giving as Cloud API Gateway, and Cloud Gateway routings also I have configured. What are the routings we added? If path is /welcome, then it should go to welcome API. If path is /greet, then it should go to greet API. Currently, the filter is not available here. Currently, we have not created the filter. Let's run this application and check it. Maven, update the project, force update. Okay, go to Eureka. Currently, how many servers available in the Eureka? Greet API is registered with the Eureka. Welcome API also registered with the Eureka. For the Welcome API, how many instances available? There are 2 instances available for the Welcome API. For Greet API, how many instances available? Only 1 instance is available. Now, what is the change I have done? When I select dependency from the IDE, I got gateway with MVC, guys. Actually, we no need that MVC. I'm using Spring Cloud Starter Gateway dependency. I have added this one annotation. What is this annotation? Enable Discovery Client annotation. What is the purpose of Enable Discovery Client annotation? It is going to register with the Eureka server as a client. Then next one, YML file. In this YML file, what is the configuration? Configured port number for API gateway, which is 3333. And I have given name for the application, which is Cloud API Gateway. And here, Cloud Gateway routings I have configured. What is this routing? When the request comes with /welcome, forward that request to welcome API. When request comes with /greet, forward that request to greet API. API gateway doing the routing with the URLs of the API with the name of the API. name of the API. Why we are using name of the API for routing? URLs can change. Load balancing can be available. Good. Refresh. Run as boot application. Maven update this project. Before running, I'm updating. Then run API gateway. Run as boot application. API gateway project is failed. Spring MVC found on class path. Web starter not required. Remove the dependency. I think the dependency we selected incorrectly. We should select reactive cloud gateway. I selected normal cloud gateway. Maybe that is the issue. Yes. This time API gateway project is started. Eureka. Now, can you see Eureka dashboard? Can you see Eureka dashboard? How many services available in the Eureka now? 3 services available. One is welcome service. Second one is greet service. Third one is cloud gateway service. Here, only for the welcome service, there are 2 instances available. Greet API is having 1 instance. API gateway is available with 1 instance only. Now, so if you observe what is there, welcome API, if you see, welcome API is available in 2 instances. What are the port numbers? 8081 and 8082. What is the URL pattern? /welcome. Got it. And here we are having greet API. How many instances available for greet API? 1 instance is available for the greet API. What is the port number? 2222 port number is available. What is the URL pattern? /greet is the URL pattern. And we are having API gateway. And we are having API gateway which is having 1 instance. What is the port number? 3333 is available. Now I will send request like this: http://localhost:3333/welcome. What is the meaning of that? /welcome is available where? Welcome API. How many instances available? 2 instances. What is the port number? 8081 and 8082. But I am sending the request to which server? 3333. 3333 port number belongs to which server? API gateway. What is the configuration in the API gateway YML? What is the configuration in the API gateway YML? If the request is a /welcome, you forward that request to welcome API. I am sending the request to API gateway. Now, from where I should get the response? From the welcome API. So end user don't know what is welcome, what is greet. For end user only we will give gateway URL. Gateway is an entry point for all the microservices in our application. Now see this one, 3333/welcome. I'm going to this one, localhost : 3333/welcome. 3333 port number belongs to which server? API gateway. But /welcome URL belongs to which API? Welcome API. That means I am sending the request to API gateway. It should route my request to welcome API. Am I able to get the response? Which server responded? First server responded. Send the second request. Second server responded. Third request, first server. Fourth request, second server. Fifth request, first server. Sixth request, second server. Request routing is happening. Request routing is not happening. The request I am sending to which server? Am I sending the request to welcome API directly, or I am sending the request to API gateway? I'm sending the request to API gateway. But who is giving the response? Welcome API. Who is transferring my request to welcome API? API gateway. Now, I'm going to send one more request. http://localhost:/2222/greet. Sorry, 3333/greet. 3333 port number belongs to which server? It is belongs to API gateway. /greet belongs to which server? Greet API. I am sending the request to API gateway. API gateway should route my request to Greet API. Greet API will use VN client. VN client will communicate with welcome. The complete microservices architecture is working now. See here, 3333/greet. Send the request to Greet API. What happened now? I am sending the request to API gateway. API gateway routed my request to Greet API. Greet API communicated with the welcome API by using VN client. And here load balancing is also available. My welcome API is running in more than one server. First request is going to first server. Second request is going to second server. Now look at this diagram. API gateway is available. API gateway, I am running on the port number 3333. Welcome API is running on 8081 and 8082. There are two port numbers available for welcome API because two instances are available. So here Eureka is running on 8761, admin server running on 9090, Jipkin server running on 9411. Welcome API running in two instances, 8081, 8082. Greet API running in one instance, 2222. Admin server is done. API gateway running in one instance with 3333. Now, to access our backend APIs, we are going to send the request to which service here, guys? API gateway. What is the role of the API gateway? It will take the request. It will route the request to the backend API based on the URL pattern. API gateway is a front controller now. API gateway is an entry point for our microservices. So currently in the API gateway, only routing is available. What is that routing doing? If the URL is /welcome, go to welcome API. If the URL is /greet, go to greet API. Tomorrow we are going to implement filter in the API gateway. What is that filter will do in the API gateway? If it is a valid request, then only route it. If it is an invalid request, don't route it. That filter will be implemented in the API gateway. Now you observe the diagram and the port numbers. I am accessing API gateway project, or I am accessing this welcome and greet APIs directly? No, I am accessing API gateway. Then the request is forwarded to actual microservice in the backend. Are you clear? Good. So what is the procedure we followed to develop API gateway? Eureka client cloud gateway, enable discovery client, YML configuration is changed, guys, previous version to this version. Yeah, this is the YML configuration which is required for API gateway. Okay. Now, after running all these projects, you need to understand welcome API running in two instances with 8081 and 8082. Greet API running in one instance with 2222. API gateway running with one instance with 3333. We are accessing API gateway with /welcome. We are accessing API gateway with /greet. When I access API gateway with /welcome, it will route my request to welcome API. When I access with /grit, it will access my grit API. Grit API will communicate with the FIAN client. FIAN client will communicate with welcome API. Inter-service communication is available. Load balancing is available. Routing is also available. Now, look at this diagram. We are able to fulfill this diagram. Forget about these three. These three are not implemented. Kafka, Redis, config server not implemented. Remaining things are implemented. Look at that. Microservices. Yes, guys. Able to understand? Offline students, any questions on this? If you don't practice, it will be a lot of confusing. You have to do the practice with all this procedure. Okay. So here, load balancing concept is there. Working with the cloud API gateway. How do we implement load balancing? Inter-service communication with the FIAN clients and all that stuff. Here we have done load balancing. How we implemented load balancing? What is the meaning of load balancing? What is the meaning of load balancing? Distribute request to multiple servers. So what we have done here? First step, remove port number configuration in welcome API YML file. Right click, run configuration, run as, run configuration, select welcome API, select welcome API, VM arguments, configure -d server.port is equal to 8081 and apply and run it. So with this, load balancing will happen. Again, what we need to do? Same procedure. With 8082, apply and run it. So with this, what will happen? With this, what will happen, guys? Welcome API will be running in 2 instances. Make the changes in the REST controller to display. Here, make changes in REST controller to display port number in response. Okay. Then run this application with a dynamic port number. Distribute request to multiple servers. Implement run welcome API in multiple instances. That is what we have done. We removed port number from welcome API YML. We made the changes in the REST controller to display port number in the response. We deployed that in 2 servers with 2 different port numbers. Then we created API gateway project. This is our API gateway application. API gateway using 3333, routings available, and application name we configured. Finally, we are able to test our application with API gateway URL. What is pending for tomorrow? Filters we need to implement in the API gateway. Okay, this is the updated document notes. Today, what we learned, guys? Today we learned about load balancing concept and we learned about API gateway concept. Okay, fine. Let me update these notes. Meanwhile, anybody having any questions, you can unmute and you can ask me.
Sir,
Online, offline people.
Sir, you have added web starter dependency, which is not required.
Yes, sir. We removed that. Not required. Let me remove this also. It's not required.
Hello, sir.
In real time, they'll use server-side load balancer only, right, sir?
Yes, sir. You can use server-side load balancing or you can use client-side load balancing. Mostly in the real time, server-side load balancing will be available.
Then what is the use of inclines?
Inter-service communication, sir, it is the extra benefit it is providing. If you want to use, you can utilize. If you don't need, you can ignore that. It is also doing the load balancing. If you don't have server-side load balancing, if you don't have a budget to go with AWS and all, then this is one option you can utilize.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I have a question for JRTP.
Mhm.
I am confusing to write return type of method.
Okay.
So how
We'll
to
discuss
develop?
in that class, sir. We'll discuss that in the JRTP class tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
The setup are we going to deploy in AWS, sir?
No,
Whatever
sir.
we have developed.
No.
Hi, sir. For each and every request, the object is created like for.
Can you come again?
Like we have multiple requests, right? In our application, for each and every request, one object will be created.
No, by default, every class in the Spring is singleton. Only one object will be created. For every request, a new object will not be created.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Here in the like auto scaling concept, so in the load balancing, so two concept is also available in the like vertical and horizontal. So what is it like?
That means, sir, one load balancing, vertical load balancing means increasing the capacity of one server. Horizontal load balancing means increasing number of servers. Mostly we will go for horizontal load balancing. That means the number of servers will be increased.
Okay.
Vertical load balancing means
So at a real time, sir, which you are using like
horizontal load balancing.
because sir, these are interviewer asking this type of question.
Yeah, horizontal load balancing we will use.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, in real time, if external load balancer and API gateway both are used, request initially comes to AWS load balancer or API gateway?
First load balancer, then API gateway.
Okay. So then API gateway will be distributing the load, no, sir? Because
that is only for the service, right? That is only for the service. Again, services will be multiple.
Sir, any free tier is there for server side load balancer? AWS is not providing, right? Any
No.
other thing is?
No, we don't have.
Hello, sir. In
Yes.
client side load balance where ribbon was involved.
You don't need to do any configuration, sir. It is inbuilt in the PN client. PN client internally will use a ribbon. You no need to do any configuration. You can't see that with your eyes.
Yeah.
It is internal implementation.
Sir, what is the difference between application properties and YML and how is it relevant to changing?
Sir, both are used for configuration only. Already I explained what is the difference between properties file and YML file. Properties file is used only in the Java. YML file is universal. Multiple technologies will support. One is representing data in the key value. Another one is representing the data in the hierarchical format. I already discussed in the Spring Boot classes.
Sir, client side auto scaling and down we can't do, na, sir?
Default Spring.
No.
Only server
Real
side
time.
it's possible.
Yeah, server side auto scaling and all these things are possible. Client side we can't do it.
Sir, in real time, most of the time server side load balancing.
Yes, sir. Server side load balancing only we will use in the real time.
So, are you teaching server side load balancing?
We need to discuss AWS for that. AWS is not part of this course, right?
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hi,
Yes.
Hi. Is there any configuration like every time we are launching a service or port number we are giving, right? Three services, three instances we are loading.
In the real
Is
time,
there any runtime?
1 minute. In the real time, we don't do like this, right? In the real time, everything will be running as a Docker container. Once we go to the Docker, I will explain that how we will run all these projects at a time.
Oh.
Currently, we are running everything in our local. That's why we are changing the port numbers every time. But in the real time, we don't do like this. In the real time, every application will be running in a separated Docker container. You no need to change all these port numbers.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Means in real time we deploy these services using Docker.
Correct.
Yeah.
Docker is part of our syllabus. I will explain.
Okay. No, we are not deploying one by one.
No.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, can we change the ribbon algo? So currently it's round robin.
You
So
can't change that, sir. In the ribbon, you can't change that. In the server side load balancing, you can change the algorithms. Ribbon, we can't customize. It is inbuilt functionality.
okay, the another question is, let's say currently we are just implemented the multiple microservices. Okay,
Correct.
so each microservice has its own URLs. For example, localhost 8081 something like that.
Yes.
But by using the API gateway, can we just restrict the each microservices URL from outside?
Yes, that's where you need to write the security.
But in that case, the PN client can be able to access inter.
Yes, it can access. We need to customize that configuration.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Little
Sir.
confusion bit load balancer and API gateway. Sir, can you please explain when request comes, it goes to where first? It's load balancer or
First, the
API
request
gateway?
is going to our API gateway. API gateway will go to the service name. Service will have multiple URLs. Then load balancing will happen. First, it comes to API gateway. It will go
Yes,
to
sir.
the welcome API. Welcome API having load balancer. Then it will distribute the request here.
So,
See
Hello,
the
hello,
diagram.
sir.
We'll understand.
How to say our request taken how much time?
Jipkin. Tomorrow I will show you.
Okay.
Sir, in server side load balancer also, that API gateway first the request will come. After that, it will go to
Yes.
load balancer.
Yeah.
Or how?
Yes. Yes.
Sir,
Yeah.
in real time, DevOps team asking to putting some dependencies in our project for their deployment.
Dependencies we will configure, sir. They will just take care of deployment, load balancing, and auto scaling part.
Okay. How can we know that which dependency they will?
Dependencies we need to configure in the pom.xml. That is developer responsibility.
Okay, sir.
Cool. Fine, guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the tomorrow session. Please practice this project. Microservices, whatever we develop, notes also uploaded to the portal. You need to complete this microservice project and mini project of JRTP. Okay. Tomorrow we'll continue. Thank you.